You are now listening to Ride With Me, the Flat Tire Andy podcast.
Welcome to the Flat Tire Andy podcast, episode 11 on July 11th, 2020. Time is 10:23 a.m. And today's guest, people asked, and they got their wish. He's back, Mr. LAPD himself.
Hello, guys. It's Officer Pacheco again, returning to the Flat Tire Andy podcast.
What's up, bud? How you been?
A lot better now that things have kind of calmed down, at least in LA. It's been a lot better.
So the last time we had you here, day right after the whole George Floyd situation in Minneapolis, where things weren't as hectic as they are now. Dude, how has it been since?
Well, I mean, as you said, at that time, things weren't really as crazy as they got. And those crazy days, luckily, they only lasted for about a good 4 days, where it was like legit chaos. After that, it really calmed down. Each day literally was progressively less and less violent, less chaotic, and more of what it should have been, which was just peaceful protesting. There were still thousands of people, but they were just peacefully marching, peacefully protesting. And just because of the stuff that was going on prior, we were just there for presence, protecting those like City Hall, our station in downtown, our jails in downtown, and other critical sites that are located in downtown, as well as trying to prevent any looting that was still going on. So it was, for a good week, it was just kind of just chaotic, but progressively each day was less and less violent, less and less chaotic.
So for those of you that don't know, Ricky is actually my soon-to-be brother-in-law. He's going to marry my sister-in-law pretty soon. We got to see those text messages, those threads, and, pray for Ricky. He's out there. He's working 12-hour shifts. He's all night. He's not eating. He's, keeping him in your prayers. And, we just kept on seeing those, the news coverage, man. It's like these riots are getting out of control. They're throwing rocks at police officers. They're setting police officers on cars on fire. And I made the mistake of actually be watching the news one afternoon with the boys in the room, because that night they had nightmares. They were afraid that somebody was going to come here and break into the house.
Yeah, I mean, luckily they weren't really breaking into houses though, but it was very real in the sense of like, they were being violent, and some people were being violent. They were trying to be violent towards us as in the police. They actually ended up hurting other people that were actually peacefully protesting as well. These are people within the groups. So 16 days straight of just working, and the first few days it was fun in the sense of like adrenaline, and like that's part of the reason why we joined some sort of law enforcement, because we like, or some of us may like that, like oh man, we're getting in the so-called shit. But it was nothing that I was expecting. I did not expect it to be the way that it was. And at times, most times it was just scary. Even just driving through downtown to get to certain locations,
right?
To try to, digress the group to a certain location away from a critical site, or like away from certain shops that were being looted at the time or being vandalized. After I think day 4 or 5, it kind of sat in where I'm like, I'm pretty over this. Like I'm ready to just have a day off, and
right.
It wasn't stopped. That was kind of my, I would say day 4 or 5 was like my, I don't want to say breaking point, because I didn't break. I just like it dawned on me that how tired I am, how exhausted I am, and that's when I sent the message to my family, like I'm exhausted. Because first of all, at night I can't sleep well. I can't sleep during the day, so I'm getting like 4 hours of sleep, but it's like in increments. I'm sleeping for like an hour.
Welcome to the night crew.
Yeah, and I already knew that's how I was. I was trying to avoid it, and as dark as our blinds are in my house, it doesn't matter. I can't sleep during the day, and that led to, for the 12 hours I'm working, we can't really eat. We're snacking, so we're going to like 7-Eleven having like hot Cheetos or something, and that's the nutrition we're having. And then that's when it dawned that and
donuts.
And well,
That answered my son's question from the last episode. And donuts.
You know what? Those nights, no. But when things chilled out a little bit more, they were starting. In the morning, people would have coffee and donuts, of course. So yes, donuts were definitely always provided at our command post.
I wish my son was here to hear that answer. Yeah, no, man. Like I said, it hit home when we're getting those text messages that you're, out and about, and it's like, for me, example, I lived through the Rodney King riots, but I didn't live in LA County. I just watched them on the news. I'm third grade watching this stuff on TV. Now it really hits you when your own town is boarding up their businesses. When you drive to your Smart and Final to go write their beer order, and their windows are boarded up. You go to your, Norgate, and you go to the CVS next door. People are boarding up their windows because now there's going to be protesters in La Puente. I was like, in my mind, I'm like, dude, this is serious. This is no longer a so-called TV show. This is real. Coming home and just, I remember asking my wife, you think I should lock the gate? Like, we don't lock. I mean, we close the gate, but we don't lock it. I got like 3 locks on there, but we don't lock them. One of those nights, I locked them, and the cameras aren't going to stop anybody from jumping over. But luckily, not. It was a peaceful protest out here in La Puente, so it wasn't that bad. But just watching the news coverage, I was over it. I'm like, I can't watch this anymore. This is a flashback. This is, Rodney King all over again. It's horrible. And I remember watching this video of this man from 1992, where he's yelling at people. I came from the ghetto too, but you don't see me looting. You don't see me burning buildings down. And this was supposed to be a peaceful protest. And I feel for that guy. But this video was from, again, 1992.
Yeah, I mean, it came a time where, it was scary throughout the thing, because I mean, you don't know what people are going to do, and then knowing that, as the media coverage broke, they know that we have undercovers inside of the protesters as well. Not to like, people think that we have undercovers to like that the police are starting and breaking things to start the riots and stuff like that, because I have a lot of good friends that were in it, and what their goal and purpose was of being in there was to locate those people that were throwing the bricks. People are driving truckloads of bricks and parking them on the side.
What's up with that? Yeah, I mean, there was like celebrities posting on their social medias. I came out of my house and there's a pile of bricks just outside, and people that I don't recall what city, but again, videos that these officers were taking rocks from a little park and stacking them outside on the sidewalk, and somebody caught them doing that. Honestly, dude, I'm at the point where I don't believe. Honestly, I'm gonna say it. I don't believe half that crap anymore.
Yeah, I mean, from when I was talking to them and living it, most of them, at least in LA, I can't talk about it anywhere else because I don't know what everyone's, agendas are different, obviously, in different, agencies. But at least in LA, they were simply just telling us, hey, there's a truck driving this on this street on this direction, and he's either passing out bricks or they have a stack full of bricks. And if they were just driving by with this, truck full, or a bed full of bricks, we can't really do much besides, talk to him. Like, hey, what are you doing?
Yeah.
He can easily be a construction worker, right? But it's like, okay, why are you driving in this area at this time at like 10 in the morning?
Right.
But again, it's not enough to like, oh, he was doing it because he was giving out bricks.
There's not a lot of construction sites going on in downtown LA.
So it was enough to talk to the person and see, what the motive was. But that was kind of about it. It was hoping that, hey, the cops know what truck I'm driving. I should probably just leave and not hand these bricks out. So they were there to tell us, hey, this is what the group's planning to do. This is the direction that they want to go. It's this person or these people that are throwing the cones, the bricks, the stones, the bottles, because they would have a bunch of piss and shit inside a bottle and just chuck it at the line.
Are you serious?
So it was so that way when we were targeting people to arrest, we weren't arresting the peaceful protesters.
Right.
It was to target the ones that were being violent. Now, once the curfew was enforced, we started arresting the peaceful protesters, because then it was a mayor put the executive order that, hey, there's a curfew now, and we gave them, and it would be announced multiple times, and we gave them an hour extra. So if the mayor's, I believe it was at 8:30 was the curfew, at 9:30
That's when
we
you
would
guys
then
really started to.
yeah, because we just hold and say, hey, you have to leave, or you will be arrested. Some would leave. After that, we would just we would just walk with our batons and start kind of like corralling people, because they're all getting arrested.
Right.
So then we just corral them to an area, and then one by one we just arrest them. And then it was just crazy that now people say we're in riot gear, but honestly, nothing really was different besides putting on a helmet. We
Right.
always have our baton on us. We always have the uniform, our bulletproof vest. The only thing we had different was just the helmet on. So we were in our, mobilization attire, which was just patrol attire, but just with the helmet.
Right.
And so we would just have that on, and so we're nothing different than what we normally wear, but we'd be arresting people with guns on them. And then on that, our undercovers would find guns stashed throughout the city, in bushes, in like underneath homeless tents.
Wow.
So I mean, like, again, I'm not trying to say that the protesters were trying to harm us. They could have easily been doing it for protection against other people, against
course.
but other agendas as well, because there's extremists on both sides, obviously. But just kind of wanted to relay that there was violence obviously on both sides, and it's like I told some of my cousins, unfortunately, when law enforcement has to exert some sort of force on a person, most times it's not going to look pretty, because they're resisting, which is what's causing the force that we're exerting on them to arrest them. And just unfortunately, at those times, it's not going to look pretty.
Right.
There's no way of making it look pretty.
So, I mean, right now there's so much tension between, obviously, police officers and regular people. I myself don't have anything against police officers. And I mean, especially, having two of them in the family. Two of them that my children adore. They freaking love you and your fiance. I know, from my point of view, not all cops are bad.
Yeah, no, I mean,
there's a bad apple, yes, everywhere. Even a normal family can have a bad apple.
yeah.
They happen to pass their, what do you call it, the psychic test, and
Yeah, and that's it. I mean, I had a lot of good conversations with some of these protesters, and I know I didn't change their mind, just like they didn't change mine, but I think we kind of just understood each other. They would always tell me, how, because I look young, of course. I know the viewers, the listeners can't see, but I have a baby face. So they are like, how much time do you have on the, on the job? And I'll tell them I got like 3 years on, and they're like, oh, it's not too late for you. You can still change your job. And I'm like, I love what I do. And they would say like, oh, you love people hating you. And I said, first, you're not going to understand from my point, and that's okay. You don't have to.
yeah,
But you'd be surprised how many thank yous I get compared to, F yous, because the people that appreciate you show it a lot more than people that hate you.
It's funny because people that hate police, when they're in trouble, who are they gonna call? They can't call the Ghostbusters.
I guess some would, though.
They have
Would rather.
right? You guys are there to protect and serve, and when they are in a predicament, they're gonna have to call you guys.
Yeah, I mean, if for at least a report, at least some would, when I talk to them all the time, a lot of the people that are in gangs, they really try not to, but there's just times when even gangsters feel threatened, and they know they have no choice, that they that they have to call us. So I mean, at some point, eventually everyone does need, the police at some point, and
Right.
like I said, like it's been said before, when police are called, it's usually not because, we're going to something good, it's something bad has happened. So it's already a negative experience, and we're trying to go in there to make it somewhat peaceful, but depending on the
Right.
officer you get and the mood that person or that situation the officer is in will dictate, that interaction.
Right. So a few weeks ago, you asked me to ask on my Facebook if they had any questions for you.
Yeah, I mean, I figured, certain people want questions that they may not always have.
Exactly.
The time to ask
So-
an officer. So
I did tell them that they were going to get a shout out if their question was asked. Now, some of these were kind of dark questions.
that's okay. Yeah, I mean,
You mentioned you're willing to answer the dark questions.
yeah, I'm not scared. I mean, it's
Okay.
I get a lot of
The first question comes from my buddy Frank Alvarado, and he asked, "Do they think having a badge is a license to kill?"
No, of course not. You know, having a badge really, it's not. A lot of people get kind of fixated on the badge, and that includes people that are actually law enforcement as well. And like I said on the last time I was on the podcast, no one, at least from what I talked to, the officers. I mean, there's 10,000 officers in LAPD. Haven't talked to every single one of them, but I talked to a good majority, being at 3 different divisions, and there's not one time where I talked to a fellow colleague and they're like, "Yeah, you know, I kind of hope I go out there and shoot someone today." No one wishes to pull that trigger, because the people we've talked to that have had to pull that trigger, it's a traumatic experience. Both they're living through it, and also how scrutiny the department is, because then there comes a lawsuit, and the department has to review everything. It's such a long process that could take up to a year. So no one really looks for that, at least here in LA. No one, you know, kind of gets excited on that kind of rush on like, oh yeah, I want to shoot someone today. I hope that happens today. Does not happen.
Okay.
We get the rush of, yeah, I want to chase someone today. I want to, you know, if someone's doing something bad, you know, I want to stop that. That's the rush that we want, you know, but it's never like, we don't feel like, yeah, this is, you know, we have a badge. Yeah, you know what? If I don't like you, I can shoot you right now. At least from the people I've talked to.
So again, Frank Alvarado, shout out to you again, my friend. He said, ask him what they showed in the End of Watch movie is real. So is the End of Watch movie based on true events?
I've heard mixed things. I've heard they were based on true events, like the opening scene, I guess it was. So, which, I mean, that happens a lot though. I mean, that happened 2 times just this year alone in my division, which is where End of Watch is said to have been filmed. They said that they're from Newton Division, and some of the streets are actually from Newton Division as well.
Right.
You know, the locker room scene is not though, but you know, some of the streets are actually in Newton Division. And it was just funny. I was just telling my partner a couple months ago that I was actually in the apartment complex, in the actual room where that final shootout happened.
In the movie
In
or
the
in the so again, I watched that movie once. I didn't
Okay.
like the ending, obviously, because people die.
Yeah.
So you're saying that you were in the room where they filmed the movie, or is the movie based on true events?
So it's not, that part's not based on true events where the 2 officers were being targeted by the Mexican mafia or anything like that, but it was in the final scene where there's a shootout when they're shooting in the apartment complex, and Jake Gyllenhaal and his partner go into an apartment room to kind of bunker down and return fire. I was actually in that apartment complex, in that actual apartment. It was just for a separate call, just kind of a coincidence that I just bought the call, and I'm like,
So where they
this,
where they filmed it, pretty much.
Yeah,
That's
where
all
they
you're
filmed
saying.
it.
Where they
Yeah,
filmed
where
the
they filmed it.
scene.
Yep.
You were happy. You
I
happened to
was-
be in there.
Yep, it was
Nice.
So
Okay.
yeah.
So question number 2 comes from my friend Silverio Martinez, and he wants to know, what's a chokehold?
What's a chokehold? So a chokehold is now something that we're not authorized to do anymore. Actually,
I heard a little bit about that.
yeah. So we're not allowed to do a chokehold, which, I mean, I agree and don't agree with, because the thing is, 9 times out of 10, most officers will not do a chokehold. And chokehold, I mean, the way that we're taught in the academy is, you know, what's kind of considered like a rear naked choke. You know, if you go behind them, you know, you put the crook of your elbow, you know, into their neck, and you just squeeze down, so that way, you know, to gain some sort of compliance. It's only authorized in a deadly force situation. So pretty much, if you're allowed to, like, if he's on top of you and, you know, it's a fight for your life, is the only time you're allowed to use it in the LAPD. So you'll hear a lot of the officers say, like, pretty much, if you're allowed to shoot them, you can also put them in a chokehold. So again, 9 times out of 10, an officer is not going to be in that type of situation. In my 3 years, and with multiple scuffles with, you know, suspects, you know, fighting, I've never been close to attempting, or even none of my partners close to even, you know, doing something around the neck, because we know it's a delicate area.
Right.
Now that option's gone. Again, mixed emotions, because do we really use it anyways? No, not really. But the fact that, hey, if I have to defend myself in a close quarters, So you'd rather either someone baton them in the head, or shoot them because it's a deadly situation
Yeah.
where I can just gain control with a rear naked check. Rear naked choke or something. But I mean, again, it's all. Then the only officers that would do it anyway are the ones that are trained, like that are comfortable doing it. So that's what I guess what a chokehold would consist
Gotcha.
of.
Question number 3 would be from my friend Luis Angel Barrera. He wants to know, what kind of training did you have when arresting someone?
So I mean, for us in LAPD, the training that we had was the same thing, and it's so funny how like we hear all these things in the news on this whole, cops should learn de-escalation and how to control the situation and everything, when other departments, I guess, do not do that, because that's literally what we get trained in the academy and continue to get trained on, is de-escalation. So when we arrest someone, it's just click, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally as minimum force as possible. If you gotta fight someone, you do as minimum force as possible, at the time where you're not in danger, to where you can just slap on those cuffs. If it's just vocalizing, we call it verbal judo. If you can verbal judo them to, pretty much put handcuffs on themselves, that's equally as impressive as if you're taking down someone.
Okay.
So that's the kind of training we got, is, hey, verbal judo them, de-escalate the situation, control it. Tell like, hey man, like, don't add an extra charge. I love that line. Don't add extra charge. Right now you're just going for this. Don't add an extra charge, man. And usually it does work.
Okay. Question from Fabian Romero. He says, ask him what does he think on all the police shootings of unarmed people of color. Is that what they teach them at the academy?
So same thing. We never get taught in the academy like, hey, if someone's unarmed, this is where you should shoot them. It's never a thing, right? Like, that's, I don't know. It's just a lot of that's like a media type question that he also just heard from the media. Now, does it happen? Of course it happens. And same thing when you look at the numbers, because I'm a very factual person. It's the same. Unarmed people of color get shot, just as well as unarmed white people get shot as well. Now, are white people the majority in the U.S.? Of course they are. So that's why it's also going to happen as well. That's why as officers, we're more likely to get in a shooting with someone that is white, because again, they're the majority. Us people of color are the minority.
Right.
So it's same across the board. It's just what I call that is lack of training.
Makes sense.
That's really what that is. Now, I don't know every situation, and I can't say that every situation is a lack of training, but from the ones that I see that are questionable, it's just a lack of training.
Now, I recall last episode that you were on, you did mention that that moment you had the gun pointed at someone,
Mm-hmm.
you are trained not to have your finger on the trigger.
Yep, it always goes along the side of the frame. Yeah,
So I'm assuming that some of these issues are because the guys are put their finger on the trigger.
that, or they're just scared. Like fear and when you panic is anyone's biggest biggest flaw. If you allow your actions result from fear and being in a state of panic, 9 times out of 10 those results aren't going to be in your favor. You're going to do something drastically
Right.
from that reaction, and that reaction unfortunately can be the loss of someone's life. So that's why when me and my partner, we had this literally a couple days ago, this dude was fighting us, and he's a big guy, 6'4", 250.
Okay.
And I'm 5'10", 180. My partner's 6 foot, 200.
Yeah, guys, I can pick him up with one arm.
So we were fighting this guy, and the whole time we're just calm. You can even hear it on our body when I'm like, hey man, relax, dude. Like, it's just a warrant right now. That's why a lot of people, kind of freak out, when, we detain someone and we don't tell them right away why they're being detained. Because like, imagine, I come to you right away and I detain you and I'm trying to put you in handcuffs. So I know that, hey, there's no fight. And you're like, hey, what am I being detained for? it's the reason why we usually don't do that is because if I tell you, hey, well, I'm detaining you because you matched the description of a shooting suspect, and you freak out,
Yeah.
I'd rather you being in a confused state than in a state of like, oh no, that wasn't me, and freaking out thinking that we're gonna pin it on you.
Right.
No, let us just do our investigation. Let us just.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you did it, but let me just make it safe for everyone. And I know people don't trust the police, but at least that I know you can't hurt me, therefore I won't hurt you. Let me put you in handcuffs because this is a violent criminal.
The handcuffs don't automatically mean you're being arrested.
And it's like I tell them, as
For
fast as they
everyone's
come on,
protection.
Yeah, I tell them as fast as they go on, they come off as well. If you're not the person we're looking for, these things will come off, and no
Right.
harm, no foul. We'll
Right.
give you my apology. Hey, sorry, you just matched the description. You're in the area.
Yeah.
My bad. And that's it. But that's the reason why, like, people are like, why aren't they telling you, where you're being detained for? Because we don't want people to be like, oh, no, it's not me, and freak out. Because
Okay.
then now it makes it something bigger.
Okay. So my buddy Michael Williams has actually a laundry list of questions. You said you really liked the question he had about what does he think they should teach people and kids how to properly act when response to questions when they are pulled over, detained, or have other types of interactions with police. Or are there classes or programmings that teach this that most people aren't aware of?
Now, I'm not sure of any classes that actually go around teaching how to interact with police, but it sucks for me to say, but I think that would be useful because, a lot of people just don't know how to interact with police, and all we're doing is just to ensure safety, most
Right.
of us, and, like even when I get pulled over, I know, hey, if I get pulled over by either LAPD, CHP, whatever department it is, I do these things because I know when I get pulled over, this is what I would like happen to show that, hey, I'm as zero threat as possible. And because I know that I'm armed.
Right.
So even early on, I didn't feel comfortable telling, like when I first became a police officer, I didn't even like telling the officers when I got pulled over that, hey, I have a weapon on me. So this is what I always did. I always just, whenever you have an interaction with the police, is one, unless it's, that you're calling the police and it's a frantic situation, just be as calm as possible. Because we're always going to try to be as calm as possible, obviously. And then, most interaction can happen in traffic stops. If you get pulled over, first thing to do, obviously pull over, roll down all your windows, even if they're not tinted, roll them all down. Like they always say, kids keep both hands on the steering wheel, and you can just have a conversation, just talk to, like, if as smooth as a transition you want is how they're going to be. So just talk to them, even if the cop's being like a dick. Like I had one and I think I was in Oregon or Washington, I forget which board I was on, but where I was being chill, the cop, I don't know if it's a bad day or the case was, he was still being a dick, but you know what, I don't
Yeah.
it's not gonna let that affect me. I'm just gonna be respectful, so that way, as quick as this, because the thing is, people that sit there and argue all the time with the police, now that doesn't mean that we're wrong. That we're never wrong. If you feel like you were, unlawfully stopped, you can have a conversation about it, but that's not gonna stop us from, like, hey, in our heads, we lawfully detained you. We're gonna verify who you are, make sure
Yeah.
you're not a killer out of New York, and that's it. And if like, hey, my bad, you know what, you're good. I'm sorry that wasted your time, and that's what it'll be.
So he's saying that apparently, Jacko Wilking said something on a something on a podcast about lack of training. I do hear that you guys are not in training long enough.
So I do agree with that statement, and I watched that podcast because, like I told you, I like Joe Rogan, so I watched the Joe Rogan podcast a lot. And
Is that what the JRE stand for?
yeah, the Joe Rogan Experience. Yeah, and it's what he said was very truthful, and I agreed with literally almost everything that Jocko had to say in that podcast. Yeah, in the sense of like, our academy is 6 months. Is that enough? You know what? I think it's adequate. Now, is adequate enough to be a police officer? That's not for me to decide. I'm not the ones who decide that. I felt like I knew enough and I was educated enough to do my job, because that's just the tactics and the education portion of it. Then comes a year-long probation of field actual training, which is where you get, it's like anything, you get all your experience from the field and when you're actually doing that thing.
Right.
So it's technically a year and a half, but Now, is it a year and a half of, de-escalation training, of scenario-based training, of stuff like that? It's not, but luckily for LAPD, what Jocko was mentioning, we already do. Every month we have to qualify with our firearms. Every other month, we go through scenario-based trainings for de-escalation, for mobilization, dealing with people with mental health issues. So every other month, we're going through some sort of training. Now, is that still enough for 10,000 officers? Probably not. I still think we need more, because the one thing we don't do, and he's 100% right, we don't go through any type of wrestling or jiu-jitsu type training. It's only what we learned in the academy. And that's pretty much about it. The rest is you can do on your own. And the department encourages you to go out and do your own training.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean everyone does, including myself. I do boxing, but, you're most likely going to wrestle someone than stand there and just get in a boxing match with someone.
Yeah.
So I do believe that, yeah, we still are undertrained, and which kind of goes inside with the next point I want to talk about, which is the whole defunding. I do 100% agree with the actual systemic portion of defunding of the whole, if I don't have to go to another radio call of someone with mental health issues, someone dealing with homeless problem, or someone with a drug addiction problem, I'm 100% okay with that. You can send a counselor to those calls, because it's not illegal to be homeless. It's not illegal to be under the influence of someone, really, unless you're for sales. And it's not illegal to be, to have a mental health issue. And when we go there, we already do offer resources to these people, but that's it. We offer them the resources. We can't force them hey, you have to go to this clinic. Hey, you have to call this person to get help. If they want help, we provide them resources.
Yeah.
But that's about it. And if an counselor can actually go and do something about it, 100%. They should. A counselor could and should go to those calls, not the police. We're looking for people that are committing crimes, and they're sending someone that's looking for someone to commit crimes to a mental health issue, or to a homeless problem, or to someone with just drug addiction. We can't solve those problems.
So he has a couple more questions. So telling you, he had a laundry list. I kind of like this question. He goes, what community involvement do they promote? Do they still have police sponsors with youth sports leagues? I like this question.
Yeah, so they don't really have. I'm aware of, at least. No, I'm not. No, there's actual people that do all this stuff. They're called senior lead officers and stuff like that. So we don't have, youth sport leagues anymore that I'm aware of, at least. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I know we do have what's called PALS program and the cadets, and it's a lot of people think that they're trained to one day be in the military, one day be in the police force. No, it's literally somewhere where it's a group of kids, that learn discipline at the same time, so it's, it has some I guess paramilitary type aspects in it where, they get in line, they do certain drills, but also they do a lot of community involvement stuff. They do a lot of studying. They can all do the homework together and stuff like that. So, and it's literally goes the PALS is for a younger group, the cadets is for more teenagers, type of people. So those are the two that I'm aware of right now, and it's the same thing, just because of limited resources, I guess. It kind of prevents from having more and more things, but they do try to put on events. It's not as common though, but they do try to do some events in the community, stuff like that.
His last question is, what are your thoughts on this California bullshit gun laws?
So, I mean, it's always hard to say regarding, which part of the gun laws, because Californians have such strict gun laws. Is the fact that we're not allowed to legally carry, like a normal, civilian is not allowed to just carry their weapon on them for protection. Is it the amount of magazines you're allowed to own? Is it the amount that we're not allowed to have automatic weapons, extended magazines, and the list goes on. Is it that, or just that, so that's actually about it. I'm no gun nut though. I own a gun.
Yeah, dude, I ransacked your house this Father's Day weekend, and I didn't find a gun. Yeah. I just tried to jack your fiance's walkie-talkie.
No, don't do
she
that.
She kind of stopped me from doing that. She said that there's a serial on it, and she needed to return it back.
That'll cost us $5,000 if you did that.
Dude, I like to hear the gossip, bro. I like to hear when the chopper's flying over my head. I would like to know what's going on, homie.
No.
She told me I couldn't take it. I already had it in my pocket and everything. She stopped me.
No,
She's
no,
like, no,
no.
put that back.
Yeah.
Man, it's a freaking, what's that little kid from the
The-
oh, swipe or no swiping? Oh, man.
I don't think that our radios even gets La Puente's frequencies anyway. So it would be you just be causing us a headache.
And you kind of talking, hey, done a special on
I'll be like,
Covina.
Andy, get off the radio again.
No, yeah, no, I was wanted one, and you know, the other day she asked me to go cut her grass. I'm like, yeah, go cut you guys' grass. I'm like, yeah,
What-
for a walkie-talkie.
What grass do we have?
I
that
don't
she
know.
wanted you
She
to
said my
cut?
backyard's next, and I said walkie-talkie for a walkie-talkie. Anyway, sorry about the gun laws, man.
No. So I'm torn, you know, because the liberal in me is like, oh man, I don't know if I want more guns out there in the streets, because if someone has road rage and they're a hothead, they have that next to them, you know, like,
Yeah.
what can they do with it? So that's the liberal in me. But then the other flip side, I'm like, well, you can also defend yourself with it, you know. And it's like I mentioned before, it's a tool that isn't, but people can abuse that tool.
Well, when this whole thing started, I actually thought to myself, and I told the wife, I'm like, I'm actually worried that we don't own a gun right now.
That makes sense. See, in state of emergency like that, like, no, 100%. But for a true reason, you're in your house here, but you're
Yeah.
in California, you're allowed to have a gun in your house for protection. So at that point, it's like, yeah, you're. You know,
But I couldn't shoot it for shit.
well,
I went to
and
the
that's-
I went to the Lanto last year, and her uncle Jerry tried to help me, try to teach me how to. The first time me touching a gun, 37 years old, touching a gun for the first time, and he, you know, teaches me how to take it apart and all that good stuff. And they're in the desert, bro. They have a property so huge. Then he takes me to the back and he, you know, hits this target. Hit a certain target. I'm pointing the gun. My hand's shaking. This is the first time pointing the gun. This is the first time my finger being on a trigger. And I shoot the first clip. I empty the clip. I did not hit my target.
Yeah.
Hey, try this gun. Oh, I'm like, another gun? I missed the targets, bro. And
Yeah, see, and that's what I'm saying. You know, can you imagine, like, if you're getting robbed, right? First of all, if you're getting robbed with someone at gunpoint, the worst thing to do is try to, hey, let me try to pull out my gun.
Yeah.
No, that they already have the upper hand on you.
Right.
You know, so would you trust a normal person driving by, like, oh, can you imagine, like, you seen someone on the street getting robbed, and the story you just told me, you're like, oh, let me try to save them by me shooting them, and you couldn't hit a target? I'm like, no, you might hit me. Don't you dare try to shoot.
That's the only reason
I'll
why.
give him my wallet. And
That's
he
the
was
only
gonna
reason
run.
why I wouldn't want to own a gun, because I wouldn't be able to shoot it.
Yeah, again, so that's the thing. Now, people have the thing is, people are like, oh, I want to own these guns for protection.
I'll talk them to death.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, you know, which is more impressive than anything. I mean, I think a Bronx Tale says it best, you know, they're like, a tough guy is the one that doesn't own a gun, you know,
Right.
because, you know, all it does is when someone pulls out their gun is how they're going to react. So it's like, you don't always need a gun, you know,
Yeah.
to be that macho man, or to, you know, for that protection, you know. It's like I tell people all the time, it's just being aware of your surroundings. Someone's acting a little shady. Again, some people kind of just get the jump on you, and then just give them your belongings. It's a lot faster, and a lot safer for you and your family. So to answer the question, though, I think the best way would be in the city answering his question, but also in the sense of like bias policing. That if there is any bias policing out there, if they wanted to eliminate that, is legalize all drugs, legalize all guns, and there's no reason why we're taking anyone outside of the cars. You know, even though in the Supreme Court, Pennsylvania versus Mims, we're allowed to, just because of all the stuff that has happened. Like if I pull you over because of that Supreme Court decision in Pennsylvania versus Mims, I'm allowed to take you out for whatever reason I want. I don't have to have a reason. I pull you over, I can step out the car. But that will stop all of that, because I know I'm not gonna search the car. I know I'm not gonna, you know, I don't have to, you know, because I'm not looking for guns no more. I'm not looking for drugs no more, because they're all legal. So if they're in there, you're legally able to have them.
Yeah.
Then there goes all my investigative stuff that I'll be searching for. So it cuts down on all that, and it's just straight traffic enforcement. And if what it seems like the car route is going down to, you know, automated driving, eventually there's going to be no more traffic enforcement.
Right.
So there shouldn't be anything like later down the line of investigative stops besides like, hey, you look like the person that I'm looking for on, you know, for this shooting or this kidnap, this robbery. But that's it. I'm not going to search your car for like, hey, let me see if you're the guy. No, I mean, if you match the person, I just look at the flyer and like, oh, is this him or not? We do some investigative things, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about it.
So I know you want to. You have a serious topic.
Just so everyone listening know, these are all my opinions. These don't reflect LAPD's, like what they've told me and anything like that. These are just from what my perspective. So it's my own biased opinions on, what I believe, should be done, and also in the sense of like what has been going on.
Right.
I guess in the whole sense of like the whole defunding. I kind of touched on it earlier, but I'm all for the whole defunding, in the sense of like allocating some of the money that we have, towards inner cities. If that means that I'm not going out to a homeless, call a, person with mental health issues, a person, so homeless, mental health, or drug addiction, 100% cool with that. I am 100% cool with that. Send a counselor. We can't do anything anyways. We just talk to them and we just give them. People are like, oh, you have to give them resources. We already do that. We give these people resources. Even on domestic violence, we give them resources.
Right.
It's just if they want to take it or not. And the one thing I don't agree with is when they're like, oh, send it should be a domestic counselor going out there to these calls. I'm like, well, hold on, because the two situations is most dangerous for an officer is during a traffic stop, because we don't know what we're walking up on, and a domestic violence call, because we don't know how bad the situation is or how bad it can be, because it's all heat of passion, which is probably one of the worst types of heated arguments to be in, when you're in an argument with someone that you are in a relationship with, because we know how bad they turn because you don't think straight. It's just a whole different type of thinking when you're in an argument with a significant other.
Right.
So I think police should still respond first, but a domestic counselor should afterwards, once we say, hey, the scene is stable, it's calm, we already give them resources, but hey, if you want to come out and talk to them right then and there on the spot, by all means, come do your thing.
Right.
So I'm all for it. People were mentioning how, that, I know the extremists were saying that, we should cut the police in general. In the 16 days that we had limited patrols actually answering radio calls, in just the city of LA, there was a spike of 247% of homicides, not just shooting, homicides.
In 16 days.
In 16 days, the homicide rate went up 247%.
It's ridiculous.
And I mean, so it shows that police presence, and they know this. The criminals, they're so smart. The criminals, they're so smart. They know we can't be everywhere.
Yeah.
So if they know, hey, they already have limited resources because they're handling the protest, guess what we have more time doing?
Yeah.
I know that's not really what defunding is going towards, but there are some extremists that no, we want to abolish the police.
That's never gonna happen.
Yeah,
I don't think. My personal opinion, that shouldn't happen. But we're gonna have the purge 24/7.
Yeah, I mean, unless that happens, then I would say, yeah, arm up to the teeth.
Yeah.
Because
time to get that Nintendo gun out.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't even know if I have one. Oh, you know what? I think there's one back here somewhere.
You gotta get that golden eye.
Yeah, I'm gonna
shot, man.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's I felt bad for the 88-year-old woman in I don't remember what state, but I think I was reading on the news yesterday that she was arrested because she shot somebody.
Mm-hmm.
She's a store owner, liquor store owner. I'm assuming it's liquor store owner, like a mom and pop shop.
Okay.
And when they asked her why did she do it, her answer was, "I'm fed up," meaning she's tired of being robbed. I really do feel bad for that woman, dude. I do. I get where she's coming from. I get it, dude. And she now she's gonna get penalized for being robbed. So we need the police, dude.
Yeah.
My point of view, I might lose some friends after this. Oh well, Paul. No, I'm playing. But I do believe we need the police. I mean, I've been in jail and I was arrested, and at one point I hated the police, but then I thought about it and grew up and said, no, this is my fault. Yeah. I'm in here because it's my fault, and they were only doing their job.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I was telling, our mother-in-law literally yesterday that I was talking to, it dawned on me when I was talking to, cause I work South Central, so I talk to gangsters all the time. So I like to talk to them, cause we both have that. It's just so interesting how there's just more of a mutual respect when an officer is talking to a gangster than when I'm talking to someone that's a little bit more educated. Like they just want to give us a harder time. They think we're bothering them. You know, when we're just, I mean, if a car fitted description or if they did something bad, we're just talking to them.
Yeah.
But they think we're trying to look for something bigger, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just crazy how a gangster, he literally told me like, hey, I know you're just doing your job, and I know that, you know, he was pretty much saying, I know you got it, that you're doing your job, and I do what I do because I do what I do to that's how I support my family.
Survive.
Yeah, and you do what you do because, you know, that's your job. And he goes, you know, but that doesn't mean I don't respect you.
Yeah.
And that's a gangster, like
Yeah.
a hardcore gangster literally telling me like, hey man, because the thing is, they've had more interaction with the police, so they know that, hey, 8 out of 10 times, or maybe 9 out of 10 times, as long as I'm not being, you know, an a-hole to them, or if I don't have anything on me, or even if I do and I'm just straight up,
Yeah.
hey, if I got caught slipping this time, I got caught slipping this time. But I'm not
Yeah.
gonna be. I'm gonna sure I'll catch a case, but you know that's
Okay.
I do. He pretty much said I know the life I chose.
Okay. All right.
So there's
Well,
that mutual respect. So, but kind of going on the flip side, when people are like the whole all cops are bad, you know, like when they say that, you know, we don't report on ourselves. I mean, and Jocko was right, because I already had this knowledge coming in, but when I watched that podcast, he mentioned it before I did, but he's 100% right that a majority of the complaints on officers come from other officers. We put the complaints on other officers, not even like a civilian. So we're already, in that case, snitching on each other because we know the stigma that is around.
yeah.
So it's not necessarily that, oh, majority of the other complaints are coming from the community. No, it's from other officers saying they don't like this. They saw them do this. They didn't like that in the field. And the department, you don't get in trouble for that, for ratting out another officer. Hey, if he did something bad, boom, you say it. It's anonymous. The person may know, hey, oh yeah, so I was working with that person, but they can't. There's no way to retaliate.
Yeah.
So it makes it a safe environment for officers to actually go out and be like, nah, he was wrong on this part, and I'm going to notify my supervisor.
Yeah.
For that reason, because they know that we can, if I didn't say anything, I can be just as guilty if I didn't say anything. So the people are like, oh, they're not snitching. Oh, we are, because the numbers show that we are snitching on our colleagues if they're doing something bad.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, I just wanted to clear that up as well. And as far as like the whole, you know, people are like, there's always going to be bad cops, in the sense of like, there's no perfect way of screening out a bad apple, because they're chosen from the human pool, right? So no one's perfect.
Again, back to that, you know, bad apple. One of the guys with the whole George Floyd thing, he was only on the job for 4 days.
Yeah.
Now, hopefully my listeners don't hate me for this, but again, I feel bad for that guy. These guys are your seniorities. You're only following their lead. You're technically only on the job for 4 days.
Yeah, I mean,
I feel bad for that guy. I mean, if he gets convicted, he gets convicted. I mean, I honestly, dude, I don't know why, but when I hear, oh, this guy's going to do 25 years for life, or this guy's going to do this, and I actually feel bad for them. And it doesn't even matter the crime that was committed. I just feel bad for people. Now that's just me.
yeah.
But I truly feel bad for this officer, dude. Well,
Yeah,
ex-officer.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks that, you know, that your partner sometimes puts you in that situation. Luckily, I've never had a partner that's put me in that situation before. Hopefully never puts me in that situation, you know, because I mean, if 4 days on the job, I don't know what I would do, honestly. Like, do I just stand there too? Because I mean, when you're like, okay, hey, this guy was just resisting, I guess this is what you do. I mean, you're still learning.
Yeah.
They don't teach you in the academy that, hey, you know, because like I said, no one really teaches, hey, stand on or kneel on someone's neck. You know what I mean? So that was something so probably brand new to him. And if it wasn't that they taught, he was probably like, oh, okay, yeah, he's controlling him. But didn't know, like, hey, you're not supposed to stand on his neck for 8 minutes and 40-some seconds.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, I feel bad for him. And should he have stepped in? Sure. But I mean, when you're being in a situation, when you're brand new, you kind of don't want to say nothing, no, because who are you?
Yeah, I mean, you're new, you're in the job. Like, it's me, I can be 38 years old, 40 years old, 50 years old, and I'm new to the job.
With
My
zero
mentality is,
experience.
yes, master. Yes,
Exactly.
master.
There's zero experience. I mean, so again, should I have said something? Of course, in the scope of things, it should have. But I mean, unfortunately, I guess I understand why he kind of just stood there and thought this is just the way it is.
This is normal.
I guess. Yeah, this is
Yeah.
just normal. So there's that. I just think that officers do need more training. We do need to get evaluated a little bit more psychologically because
maybe like once a year, or every 6 months, maybe because of what you guys are experiencing.
Yeah, no, 100%. So but I mean, at the end of the day, so when they say defunding in the sense of those, yes, but that to remember as well, if you want officers to be properly and more equipped training wise and mentally prepared wise, that as well costs money.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they don't do that for free. So I think that money also should be allocated not always in gear that they're always trying to give us. Like they're trying to give us like this Wonder Woman type tool. It's like I don't want to say a net, but it's like a rope that goes out and like lassos like the legs.
Yeah.
Like we don't need that because that to me is pointless. Like I'd rather spend those millions of dollars
on RoboCops.
Nah, man.
Worth the shot, dude. Worth the shot.
I still want to do what I do. I just, give us, I guess, more training or something, because, we do need it. I think LAPD does a better job than other departments, but again, we're not perfect still. But I think that's what helps us lower those incidences.
I think when I went to your graduation, I think the mayor said it best. That said, you guys are all human.
Mm-hmm.
We're all human. And I love that he thanked everyone's parents for raising good kids. Because I saw nothing but kids up there. It doesn't matter how old they were.
Yeah.
I saw kids. I saw graduation. I actually took the day off work from that day. Yeah. And I don't miss work. I actually missed that day, fool. I liked what he said. And, I know that my in-laws, they had a tear in their eye. I got to meet your parents. Mm-hmm. I got to really meet your parents a couple weekends ago. Good people, dude. I see why you have a good head on your shoulder, man. I freaking give them props. Dude, like I said, dude, I won't get tired of saying it. My kids love you like there's no tomorrow. If you were a bad person or a bad cop, if I believe you were a bad cop, trust me, you wouldn't be here. My kid, like I said, my kids love you. Just ease off on the pedal, homie. Just slow down a little bit. Just because you're a cop, you gotta fucking speed this in. No, just play. But no, you're a good guy, dude. You're a good kid, man. You good head on your shoulders. I mean, like I said, I have legally brother-in-laws, and but I consider you my favorite. You're like I said, my kids. They freaking love you, dude. Again, I will not get tired of saying my kids love you, dude. And I think the day that you showed up with your Pokemon cards, yes, he has Pokemon cards. He has a freaking Millennium Falcon Lego set that now my kids want. Mm-hmm. This is a police officer that that's sitting right here in front of me. He collects Pokemon cards, man. Come on. No, yeah.
I'm a whole new person. When I put that uniform on, I'm someone completely different. But when I take it off, I'm just
you're
silly, childish.
Silly Rick, man.
Yeah, man. I'm just
before we get to the funny question. Any last words or last thoughts?
Yeah, so the last thing that I have, I'll end it here because I think this, to me, is the most crucial thing that we need to work on. And even though we have something already implemented, I think we need to take more time in it. And I got this idea from Jocko as well, from the Joe Rogan
podcast.
Experience. Yeah,
I gotta start listening to this guy.
No, he's good, dude.
I don't listen to the podcast.
Really good. I
have one.
No, dude, he has some really smart people in there, dude, and it's pretty good. But anyways, I think that we should definitely start building better relationships with people in the community, because he said it best that when they were doing their military thing in Iraq, that their major general, whatever the title is, I forget, but they said you couldn't just drive by in your Humvees, showing a force. You actually had to get down and talk to the people and build that relationship. We have a small unit in each division that does that, but it's small. It's only really in the projects where they do that. I think officers should do that a lot more when they're driving by in the streets that we know is a gang area location. Not everyone in that location is gang affiliated. There's normal people there that just want to be able to have their kids play outside.
I can have my three teardrops on my eyes and won't be harassed.
So I think we should just get out of our cars more, talk to people more, build that relationship, so that way, because they're the ones that will tell us like, hey, house next door, every so and so, they do this. And it's just so that because they want the same thing we do. We just want the bad people. We don't want them there no more. That's all it is. And the people, they'll tell you, because they tell me all the time, like that house there, they always call towns. We just don't want them because we don't feel safe with our kids coming out, stuff like that. So I think the police should do a lot more of community policing, not just, you know, driving around. Because I mean, I drive around all the time. I'm saying hi to kids. I get down, give them stickers. You know.
You bring us some?
Huh? Yeah, I mean, if I can get my hands on them, LAPD is cheap, man. They don't want to give us those things no more. And I have baseball cards to give out.
Oh, man.
So,
You come to my house and you don't bring stickers?
that was like early. I don't even have stickers no more. I haven't had stickers for 2 years. But I'll try to get my hands on some.
That'd be nice. I would like one.
Yeah, I'll bring you guys some.
Flashback when I was a kid. I like it.
So yeah, I think that's the one thing that will definitely change, especially the younger generation, is just communicating with them. Because that's what I do when I see younger kids that are more or less gang affiliated. I spend more time with them than I do with the older people, because I know that, hey, you know what, they're in it. You know, it's gonna be very hard for me to change their mind. But when I talk to them, you know, I've taken pictures of when he's tagged, and I know he's on probation, and I'll call him like, hey, dude, come here. Again, I just show him like, hey, what the hell is this? And I'll show him, has their gang name with his moniker right there. And he's like, oh, I'm like, dude, you have probation right now. Don't make me call your probation officer, dude.
Yeah.
You're doing good right now, dude. You're almost off probation. So I talk to him about it, but I don't make it a big deal where I'm like, you know what, you're going to jail for this.
Yeah.
No, I just talk to him like, dude, you're almost off probation, dude. It's only a few more months, man. Don't mess up in that time, because then they can really stick it to you.
Okay.
Keep a straight arrow. You're doing good right now.
Yeah.
So sometimes they listen, sometimes they don't. But I think that's important.
I think a word of advice from me, who's just a guy that sells beer, to a police officer is just prove the media wrong, man. You keep doing your job and prove the media wrong. Prove, the bad apples wrong. Because, I see videos and things about children being scared. Oh, I can't go outside because I'm going to get shot by the police. That's the mentality they're being told by their parents.
Yeah.
Prove them wrong, dude. You're doing a good job. Keep doing what you're doing, man. Thank you for coming on the podcast again. And people actually want to hear more of your stories. A couple of weeks ago, hey, bring them back. On Saturday, I had an uncle that came by to finally see the setup, and he's like, whoa. I'm like, dude, you told me to start a podcast, and I started a podcast. He said, keep Ricky coming on. Before we end this, let's end it with a positive or a funny or something.
Yeah.
So Justin wants to know, what was the funniest traffic stop?
Okay. It's not mine, but it is definitely the funniest because I was a part of it. So there's these things that are called, so when we're following a stolen vehicle, it's a backup, which is like more than like, hey, come and assist me. It's like, hey, I need assist now. Because usually when people steal cars, they have, they typically have some sort of weapon on them. So just for everyone's safety, for us at least, more officers there, they know the situation more, it's less likely that the people in the stolen car are going to act more violently. So we kind of make a bigger deal so that it's just a safe environment. So they request a backup. We go there. These are two old timers, right? I'm not gonna say their names. I'm not gonna say which division because it wasn't even in my division.
Yeah,
so,
I don't need to get sued or get arrested.
No. So they're old timers though. Then they're pretty much almost retired, and we pull up, and the first thing I see is the senior officer. He's like this, pointing at the actual vehicle, and then his partner has his baton because it looks like a lightsaber. You've seen my baton, right?
I think so. Yes, yeah.
So it's a long black baton, and so he has it, and he's holding it
like a lightsaber.
Like a lightsaber. So there's these two older guys, and they're just. It's usually like a serious thing when it's a backup. Yeah. And they're just finger gun out, and the partner he's like in a baseball stance holding it like a lightsaber, and we're running out there with our pistols in our hands, like what the hell are these clowns doing?
And how does the guys react?
They don't even. That's the thing. They don't even know that because usually they're used to like having normal guns pointing out.
Right.
Because these people have stolen cars in the past, so they have zero idea that an officer behind them has his finger gun out, and he's like at no point ever took out his actual gun. But see, that's a terrible. Now, a lot of the officers say don't ever do that. That's super unsafe.
Yeah.
But this guy doesn't care. He has so much time on. He has I think 30 or 30 plus years on, he doesn't care.
Yeah.
He's just out there with his finger gun. His partner's walking up with his baton in his hand. I mean, it's just the funniest scene that I've ever seen. I'm like, these guys are hilarious.
That's crazy, dude.
I loved it. I thought that was the most funniest thing I've ever seen. I'm like, this guy legit had a finger gun pointing at a suspect. That was awesome.
Oh, that's crazy. Well, Rick, again, man, thank you for being on the podcast. Obviously, this won't be the last time. And, you know, like I end every podcast, thank you for riding with me.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to Ride With Me, the Flat Tire Indie Podcast. You can also listen to us on iTunes, Spotify, and Podbean.